and/or action. Discussion, action, vote. Potential solutions concerning regarding the Scituate Prevention Partnership Program Administration. This is a continuation of last month. When I opened up the meeting last month, this is in reference to around General Law 1621-2-2, and this issue has been brought to our attention by one of our town residents. It's to promote the opportunity for municipalities to establish a comprehensive substance abuse prevention program. Last month, after a fair amount of discussion, we had asked our town solicitor, Wyatt Brochu, to please take a look at this program. It's outlined how it's been run and if it were properly established to concern the issues at hand. So, Mr. Wyatt Brochu, would you please approach?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In looking at the program, one of the things I wanted to do from the beginning is take a high-level view of the program, not necessarily get into the weeds of what's been going on over the last 3-4 years.
All right, can you pull that microphone a little closer?
Got it?
How's that?
Is that better?
Yes, sir.
So, as part of the process of conducting this review, I talked to the town staff. I did have a conference call with Buddha, the state agency involved in this grant that the town has a contract with. We had a conference call with their general counsel, program managers there, along with Mrs. McCormick was on the call. And I started my review also looking at the base governing document, which was a contract executed between the town and Buddha. A contract was executed in 2014. And trying to get a comprehensive overview of the program, really starting from base zero, as the solicitor's office has not been involved in this program at all. After talking with town staff and having that conference call and reviewing the contract, it became very clear to me right away that there was some disconnect. So from the town's perspective, this was a contract entered into between the state of Rhode Island and the town as the agency, Scituate Prevention Partnership. And I was told that this, the grant funding model was a pass-through model. Essentially that Mrs. McCormick, the SPP, works closely with Buddha, and they get all their approvals from Buddha. They do everything in accordance with Buddha approvals, and they submit invoices, and they work with the programming with them. And then once Buddha approves the invoices, they send that approval along to the town, along with the funds, and then the town remits the funds in accordance with Buddha's approval. That's essentially how the program was explained to me by town staff from the financial end.
If you don't mind me asking, who did you speak to at Buddha?
At Buddha, I had a conference call with their general counsel and with, I don't remember Candace's last name.
Rogers.
Rogers, you were on the call, and Erica McCormick. And on the town end, I did have a conference call to review the program out of the finance office with the town treasurer. Also, I made inquiries to the town clerk to send me any and all documents related to the Scituate Prevention Partnership and the grant administration. So that's how the finance end was explained to me, the town. I asked about the managerial end, and it was unclear who directly at the town SPP reports to. It was unclear who is giving any managerial oversight on town staff over the program. It was intimated to me that it may be the school committee, although Ms. McCormick corrected me that the school committee does not have any managerial involvement in that. So then, when I had the call with Buddha, they explained to me that the understanding I had from the town side was incorrect. And they referred me directly to the contract that the town entered into in 2014. And that contract, the town is the agency in that contract. The contract does have several requirements in it. It does list the initial members of the Scituate Prevention Partnership in one of their addendums, and Erica McCormick is listed there as a coordinator, paid staff, and Nancy D'Annunzio is also listed there as the grant manager, paid staff, both not voting on this list of people in this partnership. I do not know who the current members of the partnership are. That information was not provided to me by the town, and I'm not aware of any, or I wasn't provided any meeting minutes or anything like that of the partnership. Also, it wasn't clear to me what body in the town, if they do so, appoints members to the partnership if these original members had resigned. Also under the contract, there needs to be a project officer for the town. It wasn't clear to me what person on town staff was that project officer. The primary management of the grant has been through Mrs. McCormick as project coordinator and through Mrs. D'Annunzio as the grant manager. And from the documents, they're both independent contractors with the town. However, I was not provided, and I understand there is not any written independent contractor agreements with those two entities. When I had the conversation with General Counsel from Buddha, she explained to me that that pass-through model, as that was explained to me, was incorrect, and that the town, as the agency that was awarded these grant funds, has primary fiduciary responsibility over the funds and management of the program. And obviously that's done in coordination with Buddha, but she made it very clear to me under the contract that was the town's primary responsibility, and that actually the model that should be followed, the grant administration is managed by the town, obviously in coordination with Buddha, but the town does have a role in that management, as they are the agency listed as the contractor in the agreement. And the process really should be is that the project coordinator, whether that's an independent contractor or staff, the project coordinator and grant manager is working with the town. All invoices should be submitted to the town. Program management documents should be submitted to the town and approved. The town would then approve what was going on under the grant from a programmatic perspective, and then also approve any financial disbursements, make those financial disbursements of town funds, and then the town would seek reimbursement from Buddha for those expenses. And so it was clear to me that there was a disconnect on how the program was being managed. I think everybody in the conversation agreed that the project coordinator, Mrs. McCormick, and Nancy D'Annunzio, the grant manager, were working with Buddha, providing Buddha timesheets and budgets and those types of things, and seeking Buddha's approval in their work for the program. However, it was also clear that there was no one on town staff that was overseeing that administration. The closest we would have would be out of the finance office, but my understanding was the finance office was treating this as a pass-through, and they were making sure that Buddha approved the expenses, and that documentation was provided, but nobody was evaluating that documentation. I think each body was pointing to the other. Buddha was saying, well, the town has responsibility, and the town is saying, well, Buddha has responsibility. And so there was somewhat of a disconnect there. Additionally, yes, sir.
I have a couple questions before we go on any further. So am I hearing that Buddha says, or has informed you, that all the financials are handled here in town by the town's financial department? Am I understanding that properly?
Yes, the general counsel made it very clear to me that under the contract, we have responsibility. The town has responsibility to be in compliance, not only with the contract, but the contract is pointing to federal regulations, the grant program itself, that we have a primary responsibility for the administration of those funds. I mean, that was made very clear to me on the call. And although obviously there is coordination with Buddha through their management personnel, the town is not alleviated of saying, well, we just rely on Buddha, and if they approve it, it's okay with us.
Right, and so it was not a pass-through grant. The town front-loaded those monies and then would reimburse at a later date. Do I understand that correctly?
Yes, the grant itself, the model is not a pass-through model, is what she said to me. She said it's a reimbursement model, and if you look at the contract, that's what it says. It's a reimbursement model, so the town had fiduciary responsibility, whether that was through town staff in administering the grant or through independent contractors, which has been done in this program. The town had responsibility to ensure that there was compliance, and also to have a managerial role in how the program was administered. For example, one of the things I had, and it was somewhat unclear in the original agreement. It's not clear from the town records that were provided to me how actually this agreement was authorized. It was signed by the council president at the time, but the minutes don't indicate that there was a clear vote. The contract was presented to the council. I think the council knew of the program. Additionally, I did not look at the history beyond the start date of this program and the 2015 strategic plan that Buddha provided for me. So there was a strategic plan provided to Buddha going into this grant, and that's where they listed out what the town would do, who the prevention partnership was. But when you look at that exhibit to that plan, some of these members have been on the partnership for several years, so it's not clear to me is a creation of the town or it's something different. For example, the partnership was mentioned in a audience participation comment in 2015 by Mrs. McCormick, and it says that the partnership organization, and she was informing the council they're having an annual meeting. So right now it's unclear to me whether the partnership itself is a public body or not. Although we do know that it's getting town funds through this grant, and we do know that the grant manager and project coordinator are independent contractors. I did not find any record how that was done. The town records, at least the ones given to me, I did not see an RFP process that went out authorized by the town council. I didn't see how that process was done, how the independent contractors were engaged, because there are other independent contractors under the SPP budget. There's advertisers, marketing professionals, and the agreement actually has more stringent bidding requirements than the town requirement. So when it's not clear to me that any time funds were expended under this grant, whether if it was required, whether things went out to bid, whether bids were taken, how those decisions were made, and who actually was making those decisions. I think in my conversation with Buddha has worked closely, my understanding, with Mrs. McCormick, Mrs. D'Annunzio. I think everybody knows what's going on with the program, but it's very clear to me when I took the town council, she referred me right back to the agreement and what the town's obligations were, and that we should take it very seriously if we're not meeting those obligations. And so, unfortunately, right now, I have more questions than answers. Some of the specifics that came up at the last meeting, the council president asked about the payment for vacation time. I didn't put on that last question to and the reply to me would be, but vacation was appropriate to pay if it was in accordance with town policies. That allows an independent contractor to build a town for vacation, an agreement that would have that provided for.
Well, I reached out to Mrs. McCormick and asked for the copies of the contracts, and she referred me to you. I believe that my impression is that they're a public body. Did you get any contracts yet from either one of it, Nancy or Mr. McCormick?
No, I did receive correspondence today that there are no contracts, independent contractor contracts. And I would make the assumption, confirmed, that the positions in the other contractors, those matters have not gone out to bid. At least I haven't provided any documents from the town that they have. And it's, I think Buddha was involved in the management of these grant funds, and it was obviously reportings are being made. They're working with the project coordinator and grant manager on administering the program, and by all accounts, the program is achieving the goals that have been set out for it in the grant. However, I think I think many questions exist as to its administration, and specifically as to the town's responsibility in the administration, because the town ultimately is the signer to the agreement, and we would be the one to be held accountable. I'll give you an example. Any subcontractor that the town subcontracts out to regarding this grant, they need to sign on to the main agreement with Buddha. Now, obviously, Buddha is aware that the two primary subcontractors, project coordinator and the grant manager, have been working on the grant since its inception. They actually were instrumental in making this thing happen from the documents. However, there's no documentation that they are responsible from a fiduciary position to the town in the administration.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong. You spoke to the finance director, and he said that these expenditures are approved by Buddha. When you talk to Buddha, am I correct that they just pay out whatever the town sends them? They're assuming the town is reviewing these expenditures?
I wouldn't go that far. I think they have a role in reviewing. They want to make sure that the funds are being managed in accordance with the grant. But what I didn't find is management and what actually was being achieved by the grant. I think practically how I've seen this happen in the past is that the town definitely has a primary role regarding the finances, reviewing those, putting things out to bid if it's required, entering into contracts, and then obviously you're looking to Buddha as to the programmatic achievements that need to be made. By all accounts, from the reviews I've seen, program is achieving its programmatic objectives. However, it is concerning when you see in the documents now I received from Buddha, which I did not receive from the town, is that the annual budgets that were submitted to Buddha, and Buddha presented them to me as, oh, here are the approved budgets. However, I'm not able to tell who in the town approved them. And so when you see there's budgeting being spent, there's independent contractors that are being engaged under those budgets, it's not clear who at the town is either A, making those decisions or is conducting any type of review. I mean, we know for the last 2 years that the council hasn't been conducting any review of this program. So when we look at that, there was a disconnect, from that reimbursement versus pass-through model. But obviously, Buddha did make clear to me that under the agreement, the town has the primary responsibility in the management of these grant funds.
And after spending a fair amount of time on this, I think the problem lies initially with the Rhode Island General Law 1621.2-3, the authority of municipal government. All municipal governments and their designated agents shall have the power to establish, operate, conduct, and/or make programs to provide comprehensive substance abuse program. The appropriate municipality authority shall adopt rules and regulations governing the substance abuse prevention program, including an application and contracting procedure by which qualified groups may apply to operate a substance abuse prevention program. The substance abuse prevention program should comply with all applicable provisions of the general laws. So, going back to the beginning, I think is always, when there is much uncertainty and lack of clarity and transparency as we have here is always best. So, the question, was the process by the Rhode Island General Law 1621-2 that governs establishing this program followed properly? And by what we were unable to obtain at Town Hall, our records to support that. We have a contract that was signed by the council president, Mr. Collins, at the time. I believe it was in October of 2014. We listened to the minutes, or we read the minutes, and we listened to the audio. There was no vote taken. There was no discussion on any of it. It was the coordinator, and how she became the coordinator is unclear. Giving a brief presentation, and that was the end of that. So we don't see that this was properly established from the very beginning.
Are you quoting the RISAPA?
One more time, ma'am?
Are you quoting the Rhode Island Substance Abuse Prevention Act?
Referencing the grant or the agreement that was signed by Mr. Collins in 2014.
Prior to, very early on, were you quoting the Rhode Island Substance Abuse Prevention Act? You were quoting the RISAPA Act, correct?
If I may, Mr. President, I think the question pertains to Title 16 of the Rhode Island General Laws.
Could you speak up on that point, please?
I'm sorry, sir?
Could you speak right into that microphone for me?
Yes. The question from Ms. McCormick is whether or not you were citing to Title 16 initially, and then you went on to the contract that was entered into in 2014. So her question is, were you referencing Title 16, the Rhode Island Substance Abuse Prevention Act?
I was referencing authority of municipalities, all municipalities, yes, 1220, or 21-2.
Yes, okay.
Yes.
Yes.
And the local municipal government, or the local authority, in this case, it would be the town council, according to this, as I understand it, is to set this program up and play a role in it and oversee it.
I believe they're two separate animals, if you will. You have the authority under Title 16, and in this particular instance, the funds that are being used for this coalition are federal grants, but I think that Ms. McCormick could explain it a little further. I didn't have the luxury of Wyatt's Prosciut's summary here, so there are things certainly I think that we can respond to and others that we may not be able to respond to this evening. But I'll let Ms. McCormick explain the distinction between Title 16 and the coalition for which she's program coordinator, project coordinator.
Before we do that, Mr. Brochu, are we in agreement that this is the local municipal authority is responsible for setting up this program, establishing the RFPs for certified individuals to play a role in this and to oversee it, and that the local finance department would be playing a role in the distribution of these monies and accountability for it? Are we of the same understanding?
I think when you look at this program, one of the things that was unclear is, I'll give you an example. When we looked at the strategic plan that was put forth, and you looked at the membership of that stated as a partnership, length of time as a member. Well, Erica McCormick said 8 years. So obviously the partnership itself in some form was established well before the contract with Buddha for this grant. Secondly, I did a review of the Secretary of State's website. So for Scituate, there at least is or was a body called the Substance Abuse Prevention Coalition, although they don't have any minutes listed or any meeting dates listed on the website. You will also see in some of the documents there was reference to, in Erica, I don't have the name in front of me, but it was a task force. And so the question, I made a note to myself, well, is there a task force that is separate from the partnership, or is a partnership just known by different names? Regardless of all that, I think the important thing to keep in front of the town council regarding this grant is that it's governed by the contract. And obviously, I don't want to go down a rabbit hole of arguing what and how various provisions of state law apply, because I think we all can agree that the agreement that was entered into, and this was made clear to me by their general counsel, is what governs this program. And from a high-level perspective, their general counsel on the call, I think, described the message very succinctly, and it's not going to be an exact quote, but she told me, she said, obviously, Wyatt, things have not been done the way they should have, and you should take a look at that. And so I think moving forward, the town has to look at this. Grant now was extended, okay? And I think we need to look at going forward how the town has been managing this grant, whether it's been misunderstanding its role. And at the same time, it brings the question up of, we saw this disconnect with this program, and I don't think the disconnect in the Treasurer's office was one from a formal auditing perspective. I talked to the Treasurer, and they have these audited He told me there were single audit reports for this grant. I asked for a copy. I was not given any, but I'm told they're done every year, and that these are audited and documentation is provided for expenditures. And that may be, but I think that the questions are a little bit higher than that, rather, well, did we get a receipt for a $1,000 payment, and there was a $1,000 payment made, so it meets an audit requirement? Obviously, the questions are much higher than that. We're talking about, well, who authorized the payment? Is the town compliant with its obligations under the contract, especially bidding requirements, not only under the contract, but given these are town funds, if services were engaged on behalf of the town that met the state law bidding requirements, and they were not met, that is something we need to take very seriously. So I think we have questions. I think the town needs to look at this and say, going forward, how can these questions be addressed? And then looking at how this is just one grant program, obviously the next question is right there for us to ask is, well, maybe we should take a look at other programs. For example, if this is a public body, well, obviously, at least the town hasn't provided me any agendas, minutes. We don't have a record of that, so under Scituate, they're not listed on the Secretariat's website, so were they complying with the open meetings requirement? If in fact they're a public body, which I'm not able to say at this time, I don't have enough information. But I think given the way this program was initiated, was moved forward between the town and between the state, I would also suggest that at least a cursory review should be done to see if there's any more situations like this that maybe are not being handled the way they should be. I think this comes about also at, Scituate. You don't have a town manager in town hall every day. You didn't back then. So, obviously there's no one person we can go to address these questions and get these answers.
Okay, before we move forward with that, I have a series of questions that I would like to ask, and then you folks can go on record with whatever it is that you feel as though you would like to.
And I know you want to ask questions, but can I finish the RISAPA question? Because I think it might bring some clarity.
You can, but I'm still going to have to go back to, I want to ask these questions on the record. So if you would kindly, let me get through these questions, and maybe that would provide you with some information that would shed some clarity to all of it. So just allow me a few minutes to get through these questions, and then we'll sit back and we'll listen to anything that you have to say. Okay? So it's apparent that we don't have any evidence, so the Rhode Island general law, as we see it, was not followed.
Well, wait a minute. Mr. President, I'm going to very strongly object, and for the record, I did not provide my name, William C. Dimitri, D-I-M-I-T-R-I. I'm going to strongly object to your characterization that Rhode Island law was not followed. There is absolutely no indication that that's true. Mr. Brochu just said, I don't want to go down this rabbit hole as to which program is funded, how it's funded, whether this is consistent with Title 16. From your own solicitor, you don't have an opinion that that was not followed. Okay, so let's start on an even basis. And
Okay,
let's
so
start.
I'm going to finish these questions, sir.
You can finish your questions, but I'm not going to stand here and let you mischaracterize what your town solicitor just said, and which is an absolute mischaracterization of what's happening here and what the Rhode Island general law is.
Okay. So I want to get back to that. By what we could find, there weren't any. Did the council at the time actually discuss the agreement or the contract in question, and was it placed on an agenda properly to do so, according to OMA laws? Please let me get through this, sir.
Is that your question?
No, I want to finish my little spiel here, okay? Please, I'm not going to interrupt you, but I want to get through this.
I'm trying not to interrupt you, but
So the answer to that is we couldn't find any.
well, how about producing the minutes in the recording from that meeting?
We're going to get to that.
In 2014, so we can all hear it.
Okay, we're going to get to that. In the end, we will. Okay? It's not that far off. Did the town council establish a proper RFQ process for a certified prevention specialist, and was it on the agenda properly according to OMA laws? We can't find that. Now, we're not saying it don't exist, but we can't find it. Did the town council strike that? The current coordinator, a certified prevention specialist, as outlined in Rhode Island General Law 1621.2. Has the coordinator been a certified prevention specialist? We would like to know that. If so, please provide us that information, because we can't find it and there is no record of it at Town Hall. Right? Pursuant to the rules and regulations for the certification of substance abuse organizations, Section 14.2, individuals employed to provide prevention services, including subcontractors, shall meet the minimum standards for a certified prevention specialist in accordance with criteria established by the board, the Rhode Island Board of Certification Chemical Dependency Professionals. 14.2, from the state of Rhode Island, from Buda, individuals employed to provide prevention services, including subcontractors, shall meet the minimum standards for a certified prevention specialist in accordance with the criteria established by the Rhode Island Board. Is there one held for the coordinator? Does the coordinator have those credentials?
You want me to answer that?
I would, please.
I have met the standard, I've met the requirement by the state for my certification. They're satisfied with it, and actually, Nancy is a certified prevention specialist. I have associate prevention specialist certification, and even though that is not a prevention specialist certification, I'm not at that level. The state is currently, I don't know the proper legal term to describe, they are fighting that requirement because they don't believe it's necessary, and the ruling for that will be coming out in November. And I've been asked by the state to not go for my professional certification because it's so costly and timely to the grant. And until they get the ruling whether or not they're going to continue to require that, they asked me to wait. If after the ruling in November, the state decides that it's going to be required at that time, since the grant has been extended, I will go for it. But at this time, I have met the requirement according to the state. They're satisfied with it, and they have asked me not to go on for the next level.
All right, because this right here was dated October 11, 2018.
I'm sure it was.
All right, so
I'm
if you
sure
would-
what you're reading is accurate, but if you speak with BHDDH, they will give you the same answer I did.
Would you please provide those credentials to Mr. Wyatt Brosio?
My certification?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay? Thank you so much. So moving forward, we don't have to do it right this minute, tomorrow, whatever. Okay, I'm sure Wyatt will reach out. Okay, the committee. On what date or agenda did the town council put out an RFQ process for the committee members? According to Rhode Island General Law 16-21-2, there's nothing on record. So, can you please tell me about how that committee was established and who was on it?
By committee, you're talking about the Scituate Prevention Partnership, the coalition?
The task force, yes.
So this gets back to the Rice-APA Act. Back in 1987, 1989, that is when that Rice-APA Act first came into fruition, and it was at that time that Scituate's coalition got started. I don't know if it was originally called SAFE, Scituate Advocates for Everyone at that time, but that's what it was called when I moved to town 30 years ago, SAFE.
Says a task force must be comprised of individuals representing at a minimum the following community sectors: your municipal government.
Right, there's 12 sectors.
Okay, here it will be the town council, schools, parents, youth, elderly, faith, law enforcement agencies, social service agencies, providing service within the municipality.
Yep.
Who's on that committee?
All of these members have been invited to be part of this coalition, and it comes and goes. It depends how you describe who is on the coalition. Not everybody attends the meetings, but we have partnerships in different ways. We have had members of the town council be members of coalition in the past, and then they move on or can't do it anymore.
All right.
Some faith base is also part of it. They come and go, so it is a fluid thing. For example, our superintendent, we have a new superintendent, so her membership or relationship, if you will, with the coalition has not quite been established because she's busy getting started. So that would be an example. Same with our, different faculty in the schools. Parents come and go. Students come and go. So it's a constantly changing membership. We don't always have 12 sectors. And what you will read in our annual report, which I have with me, getting membership for the coalition is a big challenge. It's a big challenge. Not everybody wants to do this for work or for volunteer. So yes, we're not actually required, is such a strong word, to have all these 12 sectors. It's part of the strategic prevention framework that you're referencing, but it's something that we aspire to at all times.
Well, it calls for it right here. Contracts, specification, municipalities, rather Substance Abuse Act. So my question was, respectfully, was there an RFQ process, and who's on that committee?
So the committee was established before I came here 30 years ago. So I don't know who established the original committee. It's been on, I was here when I got here 30 years ago.
So we have no active committee?
Maybe I'm not understanding your question correctly.
On what date or agenda did the town council put out an RFQ process for the committee members according to Rhode Island General Laws, Section 1621-2? And it says it right in here, a task force must be comprised of individuals representing at a minimum the following community sectors: municipal government, schools, parents, youth. There should be a whole host of people on this committee. Who's on that committee?
As we speak right now?
Yes, ma'am.
I'd have to get a piece of paper and pull it out and read it for you.
Would you please provide that to Attorney Wyatt Brochu?
Sure.
Okay, when you can. So my next question would be is, following that procedure, that RFQ process, on what date and what agenda did the town council appoint them?
No, I just tried to
So-
answer that.
Mr. President, that would be a question better poised to the town council or the town clerk. Mrs. McCormick has been part of this coalition for the last 4 years. If the town council did not appoint an RFP process or institute an RFP process, and I think you need to go back into the past years, the past councils, and determine whether or not the town council, in its discretion, did that.
Respectfully, I agree with you. That's why I'm asking, because we have no record of it.
Well, we wouldn't know that, sir.
So there's no committee members at all?
No, I think we're mixing up two questions. Mrs. McCormick indicated that there are committee members. The question you're posing is twofold. Who are the committee members? one.
And who appointed
Two,
them?
what date, you asked, was this RFP process instituted by this body? We don't know that.
Okay,
Answer
so
to
we-
that second question, we don't know that.
All right, so we don't have a date because we can't find it, and we've searched it.
Well, I think that...
We can't have it, I understand, but...
I think a search of all past
So I
town
think
council
what could answer
agendas
this-
would be necessary.
Who would be on this committee currently? Who is on that committee?
Mrs. McCormick just indicated to you that she would have to get a sheet of paper out. Do you have it with you?
No.
All right. She would have to provide the names of the committee members, and you indicated, following that response, to please get it to Mr. Brochu, which she agreed to do. She will do that tomorrow.
How often does that committee meet?
10 times a year.
Thank you. Where do they meet?
Well, recently,
I'm sorry, ma'am?
within the past year, we've been meeting at the high school,
Okay.
but sometimes we have evening meetings as well. Last year, we had evening meetings and daytime meetings. And sometimes, so it depends. As committee members come and go, some are available in the night, some are available during the day. It's fluid.
Who establishes the public notices and where are they posted?
We do not establish public notices.
Minutes of those meetings, who established those and where are they kept?
In the past 4 years, I have those minutes.
You have them?
I do.
Okay. And you never posted them accordingly?
I don't know what that means.
We're responsible to make our minutes of our meetings once the council approves or any other governing body to make them public.
Sure.
So for the last 4 years, you've made no minutes public?
The minutes are maintained by Mrs. McCormick. I think there's a disagreement as to whether or not the coalition is a public body. Mr. Brochu indicates himself that he's not sure it's a public body.
Mr. Chairman, I want to correct that. That characterization is not accurate. What I said is I didn't have sufficient documentation to make that determination. What I can tell you is that...
Now I'm going to interject and interrupt Mr. Brochu.
Excuse me, sir, I'm
It's the same-
talking.
Hang on, I need to have a little control here, so everybody's going to get a chance. So we asked a question, you made a statement or an accusation, let Mr. Brochu go,
I didn't make
okay?
an accusation. I repeated what he said.
Okay, no problem.
If I didn't use his exact words, it's not a mischaracterization. I did not make an accusation. Whether or not he was unable to make a determination means he's unsure whether it's a public body.
All right,
In my opinion, and I haven't researched the issue because I didn't know this was actually an issue tonight, it is not a public body, but I'd be happy to do some research and speak with Mr. Brochu about it. But his response, whether he has not made the determination or he's unsure, is the same.
Okay, so we're going to give him an opportunity. Mr. Brochu.
Again, I think the review to make that determination needs to go more historical than the agreement. And this initial review was focusing on this agreement with Buddha and the $500,000 grant associated with the agreement. Now, what I can tell you is, although they just represented Mrs. McCormick's involvement for the past 4 years, on the strategic plan in 2015, it was her as the coordinator, paid staff, non-voting, for the last 8 years in 2015. And again, there's a meeting 10 times a year, which are invoiced for through the grant. Although Mrs. McCormick is a non-voting member, along with Mrs. D'Annunzio. I'm just perplexed how you cannot know who's been at your meetings for the last 10 months.
So when you make inquiry at the Secretary of State's office, is there an indication that this Scituate Prevention Partnership Program exists?
No, there is one line item. For example, when you go on the Secretary of State's website, you type in the town of Scituate. All the various public bodies associated with Scituate will be on there. The Town Council, Planning Commission, Zoning Board, Village Overlay, whatever it may be, the various committees. There is a line item that says Scituate Substance Abuse Prevention Coalition, although it has no records associated with it. What that tells me, though, is that at some time, somebody put that line item into the Secretary of State
For that purpose?
for that purpose, although there's no records. Now, again, there wasn't sufficient time to, have the Secretary of State try to determine that. What I could tell you is that town staff didn't have any records. What I can also tell you is that, again, the grant monies that the Scituate Prevention Partnership as a body is receiving, but that's not necessarily accurate, because the monies are the town's monies, and then the town is paying invoices received from Erica McCormick, not the Scituate Prevention Partnership.
Right.
And it's a bit confusing because in the agreement itself, there's an addendum where Mrs. McCormick is identified as the executive director of the town. And again, I wasn't here in 2014.
That's a little bit further here on my question.
But I think what it's safe to say is that the partnership in some form existed for many years, and it may have changed names over time, but obviously it's part of the town. The state is contracting with the town, okay, with grant monies. That point is undisputed. So whether the body itself is a public body, I'm not going to make a determination on, and it's not because I'm unsure, it's because I don't have the documents to show me how it was created. I don't have all the documents from the partnership itself. I know there were meetings because they're invoiced, okay, but I haven't been provided with minutes, and a historical review, I think, would have to take place, which was not the purview of my review for tonight.
Okay, so with that said, I mean, we have some looking into, for sure. So I'm going to continue on.
If I can just respond briefly, Mr. President. Mr. Brochu indicated that the invoices are from Erica McCormick. I have just indicated that the invoices that the town is paying and then being reimbursed by Buddha are from Erica McCormick. I just want to give the town council a sampling of the invoices that I currently have in my possession.
I'd like to just strike that for a minute. I have that further into my questioning. Yeah, I don't think it would be appropriate to go back and forth here. Let me stay on track, and when I ask that question, you are more than welcome to address it, okay? So I want to maintain, okay,
Fine.
A handle on this meeting. So with that said, it's established that there are no minutes, and there is a provision for it. We have no minutes.
Mr. President, that's not accurate. There are minutes.
Oh, there are?
Mrs. McCormick clearly indicated, and I follow up, she has possession of the minutes of the coalition.
Okay, that's fine.
They exist. All they have to do, all Mr. Brochu has to do is ask for them, and we will get them to him.
But they should be posted with the Secretary of State.
That's a matter of dispute.
Okay, well, we'll look into that. Is it correct that the coordinator is not a voting member of this, of the committee, whose members we are not sure of yet. Is that correct?
I am not a voting member.
Okay.
Erica, are you still the coordinator, or did you step down?
I am still the coordinator now that we have the extension.
All right, but didn't, at one of your meetings, didn't you approve Sandy to be the coordinator, or?
No, Sandy is a coordinator of the Region 1 grant.
Okay.
Okay, as it relates to Sandy Stewart and Nancy DiNuccio as consultants, correct? Is that correct?
Nancy is the grant manager, and Sandy is a coordinator of the Region 1 grant.
Okay. Were they approved by the town council?
No, they were not. Did not know that was the process.
Is there a contract for them?
There are no well, I can't speak for Sandy. Sandy does not have a contract with the Scituate Prevention Partnership. You'd have to ask her if there's a contract with Tri-County. And Nancy does not have a contract.
Who brought Nancy and Sandy on board?
Yeah, the partnership did, the Scituate Prevention Partnership.
And you're the coordinator of it?
Yes, I am.
So that means, did you bring them on board?
Yeah.
I have been a consultant on the Scituate Prevention Partnership Coalition prior to the PFS grant. I was brought in on a number of different occasions to do some consulting. And I think I was familiar to them. So it just seemed I think a natural connection when this grant came out.
Right, my concern is the grant moving forward from 2014 in which these monies are being facilitated through. So with that said, as the coordinator, did you hire Sandy Stewart and Nancy DiNuccio? And again, one more time, there are no contracts, do I hear that clear?
The partnership, through agreement, hired them, and there are no contracts.
So the partners hired and no contract. Thank you so much. When were they hired?
Nancy was brought on right at the beginning of the October 2014.
Okay, and it was not by the town council, it was by the coordinator of SPP.
It was, I don't know if you're trying to trick me.
I'm not trying to trick you, I just want to know, did the town council do it, or did you do it?
Question, I'm not sure. But I hope I don't get tired and trip up and say something wrong. It was the general consensus of the partnership that brought Nancy on.
Okay, because if it's not the town council, I don't have to ask the next question.
And we were following the process that had been going along with the coalition for the past, since 1989. This was something that I walked into maybe 15 years ago as a volunteer, and this is just the process that had been done. I was following apparently an incorrect process that had been done probably since the establishment.
Okay, I appreciate it, we thank you for that, but my concern is 2014 for the contract and the monies are being facilitated forward. So I just want to hear this, that Sandy Stewart and Mrs. DiNuccio was brought on by the coordinator of the SPP, and the town council played no role in that. Is that correct? No, she didn't answer on the town council.
So, again, William Dimitri,
I can't hear you, sir.
that's never been said to me before.
I apologize for that. If you could just speak up a
I
little bit.
apologize for letting my voice drop, Mr. President. Mrs. McCormick has answered the question that Mrs. DiNuccio and Sandy Stewart, I apologize, she's here, were brought on by the coalition as a body by a vote of that body.
And only that body?
That body.
Okay, thank you, sir, so much. Sandy Stewart or Nancy DeNuccio, a voting member of the committee?
Nancy is not a voting member of the committee.
Sandy?
So it depends, and this is something that I need to think about before I speak. Prior to Sandy being the coordinator of the Region 1 grant, and if you go back and look at all the invoices, and I know you have, you will see people like Amelia Vada for a contract, Chris O'Toole as contract, Sandy Seward under the contract line item, other people. And sometimes they were paid for to do separate individual projects, whether it is to create a video or to create a media event or to do the party patrol event. So Sandy Stewart at one point in time was hired to augment the work that was being done, because in the middle of the grant, it's the heaviest load of the grant. Like years 2 and 3, there's a heavy load of doing in the grant. So other people were brought on to do separate projects. So when someone is brought on to do a separate project to help, I don't recall if there was a voting violation or voting requirement, any voting going on at that time for these people who were also members of the coalition and then doing other projects. For example, I had someone who was also in the SAD club at the high school, like a youth mentor, someone that was helping with the SAD club doing different things, like a video. And that person was being paid for those hours, like a stipend, if you will, as opposed to being staff. So there's a difference between staff and stipend. So if you're getting a stipend, are you a voting member? Or are you just getting a stipend and you're at these meetings? We're getting really into the nitty-gritty of this, so I'd have to think harder about it.
I'd just like to know if she's a voting member of any committee, that's all, just yes or no. Of the meetings that you have in the minutes that you're going to be bringing forward in the near future.
For the reasons I just explained, I can't answer that. For the reasons I just explained, whether you're stipend or staff, I can't.
So you're not sure if she voted?
Yeah, I'm not sure because it seems to be a gray area.
If it's not sure, it's fair enough. I'm just asking. Okay, not sure. Is there a contract for Sandy Stewart or Mrs. DeNuccio? If so, who signed it and established it?
There are no contracts
There
for
is-
Sandy or for Nancy.
There are no contracts?
That is correct. I know.
There is a page in the agreement asking for core staff positions that have been left completely blank. From my notes, I have it just as, it's an addendum, core staff positions. It's completely blank. Are you familiar with that?
Yes,
And why would that be blank?
there are no staff positions.
Thank you.
I think you're talking about salaried position versus consultants. If I'm thinking of the form that you're referring to, I don't see it. But there aren't any salaried positions. There's nobody getting, taxes taken out, or there's nobody that's on for X amount of hours. The people that are on staff, that we look at as staff, Erica, I'm on staff, at certain times Sandy has been on staff, we're all independent contractors. So that's why that first part is blank. We're listed as under the consultant area of that budget, if it's the budget that I'm thinking that you're looking at.
Thank you. Vacation time. Who authorized your vacation time, and what year did it start?
There has been a lot said about my vacation time. It's always been my understanding that vacation time was permitted. No one ever told me otherwise. The state considers, as you heard from Wyatt Brochu, that this was an allowable expense under the grant, and the town council has been approving it over the past 4 years. The first I heard that this was not allowable was at the last town council meeting.
So you submitted, what years did you submit for vacation?
I would have to go back to my record and look. I believe the last day was January 2018.
Okay. So by my research, I see it as 14 and 15, you did not take vacation. And 16, 17, and 18, you did. Why the change?
Change from what to what?
From year to year. 2014 and 15, you took no vacation pay. 16, 17, and 18, you began to take vacation pay. So why then, and not in the first 2 years? And one more time on who authorized this?
You did.
Sorry?
You did.
I did?
By approving my vacation pay at
Okay.
your town council meetings.
Okay. So I approved your vacation?
The town council approved my vacation.
Okay. We'll circle back. Yep. All right, go ahead.
Mr. Presbyla, your department reviews all these things that are paid out. Have you reviewed this, and what's your take on this?
The timesheets and the expenditures were documented with a voucher that was submitted to council for consideration for payment.
Yeah, isn't your department required to vet these out? And
The procedures were established by, the procedures, and please take this and let me finish this, the procedures for reimbursement of this grant was established by my predecessor quite successfully. We followed the procedures, and every invoice has been paid by the state. These invoices are submitted to the council for consideration for payment. Every month you do your normal payments. Time cards, receipts are attached to those vouchers. It's not our department's responsibility to make certain these expenditures are appropriate. It's our responsibility to make sure the supporting documents are included in the voucher.
and your procedures are written down, you have them in writing?
I don't know if that's in writing. I'll have to see that. I don't know if my predecessor put them in writing. And once again, I'm not attempting to place blame on my predecessor. These procedures have resulted in every invoice being paid by the state. We have no outstanding invoices due, and the state is willing to award you additional money. So something must be right.
Yeah, but how do you know the procedures if they're not written down?
My staff has advised me of the procedures verbally, and if I will get an opportunity when my finance director, our finance director returns, I will see if they're written in a narrative form.
I've been asking for procedures for 2 weeks now. Did you get them yet? Have you sat down with her?
I don't remember you asking us for procedures. I know you were asking for, item on another issue that we are continuing to research.
It's all about the same matter, type of...
No, it's two different issues. This is the SPP, and the other one is for construction-related question.
And the state's saying that we should do all the expenditures. Are you reviewing this in the finance?
Not the finances. At least my understanding is that this is not the finance department's responsibility to manage this grant. It's the finance department's responsibility to make sure the supporting documents are included in the voucher that's council for payment. That was the process that was established by my predecessor and has worked successfully for the last 5 years.
Obviously, it's not so successful if we're here now.
We're not owed any money.
Mr. Chairman, or Mr. President, I think we can see by this dialogue that there's a disconnect.
There is, massive.
I mean, because again, under the agreement, which Buddha's council, again, pointed me to as the governing document, and that's what they consider, we had an obligation to have written procedures on the administration of this grant. We had obligations to provide financial statements on this grant. We had obligations to have fiscal assurances over the funds of this grant. And again, I think it's concerning when we have a disconnect if the Treasurer's Office is presenting invoices to the town council for payment and they're not appropriate. And from my view, there needs to be better coordination and understanding of what role and responsibilities exist for these various department heads, committees, grant coordinators, so this type of thing and disconnect does not continue.
And correct me if I'm wrong, Madam Clerk, every month, every single month, I do the bills to be paid, and I state that these bills need to be vetted out by Karen. So all these bills have been vetted out by our Finance Director, Karen Beatty, correct? Isn't that what I say?
That's what you said.
So my directive every month is that these are vetted out by Karen. So
I would, I've been in town government a long time, and I would say that if something is not appropriate to be paid, and this, from my mind, is a general rule, if something is not appropriate to be paid, then the finance office ought to indicate to the council, this is not appropriate to be paid, and this is why.
Right.
Well, if I can,
I want to finish up on Mr. Prisbilla before we go any further, okay? So please, Mr. Prisbilla.
I'm following up on his point,
Thank you.
sir.
Mr. Prisbilla,
I see, so
I want to finish up with Mr. Prisbilla before we move on.
I'll follow him, sir. Go
Okay.
ahead.
So,
I see what's going
Ted,
on.
Let me respond to
so,
the
no,
comment.
I want to finish mine. I sat back and listened to everybody, and then when I'm done, I'll listen to you.
I don't think you're listening to me at all.
I love that right side. So, I was expecting a statement in return, or the accusation that, yes, the council approved it. We did. But make no mistake about it, Mr. Prezila. There's a certain reliance with every single department head to bring the data and the reports to the town council monthly. For example, with Mr. Tucker, takes care of roll call, disperses his men accordingly, they get their assignments, they complete them, and they put them in a report. Rely on that. Police chief, he'll hold roll call, put his officers on their post, they conduct their business, they make their arrests, and he composes that into a report. Well, it's the same thing here with the finance department. There's a certain reliance within the finance department that the council relies on. And the truth of the matter is, since January the 4th, 2017, there has been a massive area between the council and the treasurer's office. Another example. I have a very close friend, or several of them, that run other towns, mayors, managers. They meet weekly, sometimes Monday, Wednesday, a couple of times with their finance department to keep up to speed, to avoid issues like this. Sir, to date, that has not happened one time. So to say that the town council is responsible for this, it's an overtone of sarcasm. This is on you, Mr. Prisbyla, in your office.
Are you finished lecturing?
Let me finish.
No,
I'm going to finish. I'm going to finish.
You've got a political statement.
So in 2014 and 2015, there were no vacation taken. There was nothing submitted and nothing paid. But in 2016 and 2017 and 2018, particularly 17 and 18, under this administration, the salary spikes and the vacation appears. And there was absolutely no communication through that reliance, that communication that should be maintained weekly in this town with no charter and no manager. And again, this is an example as to why we need one. It should be with the council president and the vice president who's assigned to day-to-day operations. So to say that we are responsible for it, I'm going to disagree with that.
Mr. President, may I?
So I have a few more questions, sir.
Well, I thought I was going to be able to respond.
You will, but I'm not done with that. We're still on vacation.
So we're going to go on to another topic.
No, we're on the same topic, we're on vacation.
So we can avoid my
We're on the
response.
same topic and we're on vacation.
You keep bringing up.
So my question is,
I'm going to respond to the
my
vacation.
question is, Mr.
Vacation.
Prisbyla, did you get approval from the state of Rhode Island in writing that the payment of vacation to the coordinator is appropriate? Do you have that?
I think the answer was given.
No, I'm asking Mr. Prisbyla.
You're asking Mr.
I'm asking Mr. Prisbyla, sir.
I'll let him answer and then I'll respond.
You could please answer that. Do you have that information from the state saying it's appropriate?
You know, I have the best information. They paid the bill.
I didn't ask you that.
No, that's the answer.
No, I
You
didn't-
asked me for my answer. They paid the bill.
Do you have
I'm giving you my answer. They
Do you-
paid the bill. If you expect another answer, it's not coming. They paid the bill. They paid the bill that you appropriately paid.
Do you
Now
have
look,
documentation from the
I
state?
need to respond to his comment about Karen. It's unfair to put someone on record as to not doing their job when they're not sitting here.
Yeah, she's been on
She
vacation for
followed
3 weeks.
procedures that were established by my predecessor. I'll stand by her work any day. If a mistake was made, it was unintentional, but proving that a mistake was made has not taken place yet. But for you to malign her when she's not here to defend herself is the same thing you did to this woman the last council meeting. And it's wrong.
Do you have documentation from the state indicating it's appropriate to pay that vacation?
You have my answer.
I want a yes or a no. You didn't answer it.
Get what I give you, not what you demand.
Mr. President,
Okay.
I'm going to read
No problem.
from the audit. I'm going to read from the audit from Buda, and I'm sure you have this, okay? So it's the quarterly report from the Buda Partnership and Buda's BHDDH Partnership.
Who did that go to, sir?
I'm sorry?
Who did that report go to?
This is a report that they prepare.
Yeah, to go to the finance department because it didn't come to the town council
You
president.
would have to ask Buda if it goes to the finance
We
department.
need to know that.
I'm going to read you a report relative to this partnership, and whether you and this council has asked Mr. Presbier, and I hope I'm saying his name correctly,
Prisbyla.
Frisbaya, whether this has asked him for weekly meetings, that's on you. That's not on Mrs. McCormick.
No, it's on the Treasurer's Department. He doesn't want to answer the questions.
He's answering your questions, and I'm going to read this now. Fiscal monitoring. Invoices are received on a timely basis. Acceptable frequency monthly. 2, proper backup and documentation to support invoices is provided with invoice. Answer, proper backup and documentation of expenditures are provided. 3, expenditures are allowable and aligned with approved work plan. Comment by Buddha, allowable costs aligned with work plan. 4, expenditures are on pace for spend down at the end of contract year. Other status described in summary. And the only reason that reference described in summary is because this council voted to freeze the account. So I'm not done.
Why don't you finish reading the report then? The whole report.
You want me to read the whole report?
Yes, the whole report.
We're talking about
When it says it
expenditures,
needs
Mr.
town authorization, go where it says they need town authorization.
What are you talking about?
The question is, what are you talking about, sir?
We're talking about a disconnect, as Mr. Brochu said, as to who approves what.
The Finance Department handles all the finances in this town.
The invoices are submitted. They get sent to Buddha, who has approved every invoice that has been submitted.
That's incorrect, Mr. Chairman, and that's illustrative of the problem that I described.
Right.
And again, I'm not creating a narrative. I'm relaying to the council what their general counsel told me. And with regards to vacation, she told me explicitly that the vacation is allowed if it's in accordance with the town policies. If the town said vacation was allowed to pay this staff member, then Buddha said, fine, it's allowed. But that's the disconnect. The town turns around and says, oh, well, Buddha said it is allowed, so it must be. And again, Buddha also told me that this pass-through model, Buddha paying invoices, is not correct. The town expends town funds, and then Buddha decides whether it's going to reimburse the town for its expenditures. And so it was incumbent, anytime a town made an expenditure, whether that was for an independent contractor, equipment, services, newspaper ads, whatever it may be, to be in compliance. And Buddha says, if we receive that from the town, and the town said everything is good to go, then we paid it. So long as it was in accordance now, from Buddha's perspective, in accordance with the grant. But that's the disconnect. Buddha is not paying invoices submitted by the town. And so again, we can go through reports and we can keep pointing fingers, but both parties, the town and Buddha, are pointing the finger at one another, okay? And again, it was summed up by their general counsel, things have not been working the way they should have.
That's exactly my read on it. So, but did Buddha tell you during your meetings that if the town has a policy on paying vacation to consultants or contractors, it would be acceptable? Did they tell you that?
They did not tell me that expressly. What Buddha said to me was that if vacation was paid in accordance with town policy, it would be acceptable to Buddha. But I think also, and this wasn't so much a verbal statement, but my impression from the call is that there was not a distinction being made between town salaried staff and town consultant. I think that line's been blurred. I think, obviously, the budget says consultant, okay? But if I ask Buddha, they say the budget's approved by the town. If I ask the town, they say, oh, the budget's approved by Buddha.
Right. Well, the truth of the matter is, I spoke with Karen Beatty yesterday at length, and there is no policy on it. So therefore, we shouldn't be paying it. and you shouldn't have approved it, Mr. Brisbala. Go ahead, sir.
Just for the record, vacation is an acceptable allowance under the program if there's a disconnect between the town and Buda as to the procedure. There's certainly nothing intentional, wrongful, criminal, or nefarious that's going on. So they're approved, Buda approves them, the town gets the money back.
Not
So
if there's no policy on it.
I'm sorry, sir?
Not if there's not a policy on
Whether
it.
there's a policy or not, the town was reimbursed. If there's a misunderstanding as to whether or not she was permitted to take vacation time in 16, 17, and 18, then there's a miscommunication. But
That's not how I see it.
well, you see it your way, I'll see it
Yeah.
my way. What I'm
I think those monies would be
what I'm
better
trying to
spent.
convey to you is that it doesn't mean that there's some evil intent going on here, sir.
No, what it means is those monies could have been spent in a better place, serving the program and the children in which it was intended for.
No one's arguing.
That's my point. All right, so let's move on.
No
We're
one's
past
arguing
that.
with you.
We're past that. We
No
have
one's
no
arguing-
policy,
You know,
and it's been determined
no
that
one's
Mr.
arguing-
Brisbala is passing the buck again on his predecessors, like
No
he
one's
does every
passing the
time he's
buck.
back into
This
it.
town council's passing the buck.
No, I don't think so.
This town council approved the invoices. This town council approved the vacation.
That is not true. There's a reliance within each department, and there's a lack of intentional communication, and there has been.
Let's get it straight.
No, you get it straight.
No, you get it straight.
No, you get it
I never
straight.
accused Sharon Johnson of doing anything wrong.
You didn't, huh?
No, I did
You
not.
said the predecessor, she's right here.
Mr. Mahoney, may I
never
make a
accused her
statement,
of doing
please?
anything wrong.
All right, relax there, cowboy. She has something to say.
I'm Sharon Johnson. I was the treasurer in 2014, and I was aware that as the treasurer, I was responsible to oversee these funds. The money did not come in until October, and there was an election that year. I signed 4 invoices for $8,000. I did lose that election to Mr. Brisbala. So in November and December, I did not think it was appropriate for me to start a new procedure of how this money was to be handled. I did look at those invoices. I had previously talked to Erica regarding what was going to be in this grant, so the invoices to me were appropriate and I approved them. However, I did not set any procedures or policies because I had only 2 months left in office.
Thank you, Sharon. Thank you so much. So my next question. When making requests for these vacation monies, did you speak directly to Mr. Brisbala or Karen Beatty as it relates to it?
What would you say to me putting this vacation time to rest, and I will reimburse the grant, the vacation time I erroneously received? I did not know I was doing anything wrong, and I would like to reimburse the grant, the vacation time. Would that be satisfactory to everybody?
Well, we're gonna potentially.
Does that mean no?
I didn't say no, I said potentially. Okay, and it's a good gesture. So let's move on. Okay. Yeah, we're a little perplexed as to what the special interest group thinks is so funny. It's actually disrespectful. Let's get through this. Let's act like adults. We are. Yeah. I know you're upset because you're on the outside looking in. Maybe I would be too. But let's get through this and this, let's show some respect. Okay. All right. All righty. So, we only have about 60 or 70 more questions and we'll be done. The agreement states the administrative cost cannot exceed 10% of the grant amount in any one given year. In 2015, 2016, in 2017, the grant amount was $105,000. Therefore, the administrative cost should not exceed $10,500. How is it that your 2017 compensation exceeds that amount by 3 times?
Are you aware of the difference between...
I'm sorry, Mrs. McCormick, I couldn't hear you.
Are you aware of the difference between administrative cost and contract line items on the budget?
Maybe not as it relates to this contract, so if you could...
As it relates to the contract in front of you, administrative cost means rent, heat, internet access, phone use, things of that nature. Where do you see expense for administrative costs on the administrative line item? On the administrative line item, not contract, on the administrative line item, where did you see? I would like to see what you're looking at.
Let me bring it up, I don't have that document with me.
I don't have that document with me tonight.
What's that?
I don't have that document.
All right, so what I see is a spike. I see a spike.
You see there is...
Can I finish, please?
No, I'm sorry, I don't mean to be rude, but you have accused me of overcharging for administrative costs. Administrative costs, to repeat myself, are for things like heat or rent, which I work out of my house.
Oh, so you pay rent for your house? Is that what you're saying? I just want to know why it went up 3 times in 17 than what it did in the 2 prior years.
You're looking at the wrong line item.
Okay, so explain to us how that happened.
Explain to you how you're looking at the wrong line item?
No, I want you to explain to us how you went from $12,000 a year in 2017 to $30,000.
You're talking about 2 things now. You first talk about administrative costs, and I'm trying to make it clear. Administrative cost is for heat and internet and phone or computer, things of that nature. I did not, the only thing we have on that line item was 1 or 2 years, maybe $600 each year, from what I can recall. Nancy, can you recall? So for 1 year, it was $600. It's called agency indirect. And a second year, maybe $600 agency indirect under the administrative line item. And for the rest of the grant, nothing else was put on there, so that more money could go back into the program for the children.
Who did you provide all those line items to? Because I didn't see them.
It is part of the budget that's submitted to BHDDH.
Who do you submit it to?
I sent it to BHDDH.
It goes to the state first and then the town?
I know that I am responsible. Actually, Nancy, as a grant manager, puts together the budget with me.
How does it work, Mr. Provider? We put out and then the funds are returned at a later date. Is that correct?
No,
Mr. Prisbila.
Nancy's...
Okay. So when you submitted those bills that added up to that amount of money for that year, 30,000 change.
No, we submit on a monthly basis.
Oh, okay.
On a monthly basis. So that if there's any issue with any month, then we would have been advised by Buddha. So don't annualize something and suggest that that's our exposure.
Okay.
Normally in this situation, if an individual invoice is questioned, they would get back to us through our grant administrator, and then we would be advised about it. Okay. So at most, the town would be out a portion of an invoice. A question of a portion of the invoice, not the entire invoice.
Okay, I'd like for you to provide a complete breakdown of all the monies in this grant, line item by line item, so it's crystal clear for the folks, and there's 100% transparency from the very penny that came in into the current day since that contract was signed.
I've been advised by...
Okay. I'm asking you to do it. You're the treasurer.
We already have it, John.
Okay. Well, we don't have it, and I asked Karen for it.
It's in our office.
Then no problem. Please provide it to Wyatt. I'll continue on.
I would like to address your other comment about a spike in compensation.
Mm-hmm.
May I do that now?
Sure.
My compensation has been reviewed and is acceptable by the state. In fact, I have been told by state officials that I am the lowest compensated coordinator in the state. As far as the accusation that my compensation was increased from $3,600 to $30,000 reflects a few things. The grant runs from July 1st to June 30th, not by calendar year. The first year of the grant did not start until the fall of 2014. The $3,600 represents a brief, partial calendar year. As far as the increase to $30,000, the normal workload, as I mentioned earlier, really falls heavy in years 2 and 3 of the grant, resulting in more billable hours. Billable hours have decreased in year 4 and will continue to decrease in year 5 as the grant comes to a close. That is a normal ebb and flow of a grant of this nature.
Okay, so Mr. Prisbila's detailed report will reflect that, correct? Okay. Mr. Prisbila, I have a question for you, sir. Have you ever received a document from Buda, Department of Behavioral Health, indicating that the administrative costs cannot exceed 10% of the grant?
I thought Ms. McCormick just...
No, I'm asking you.
I don't recall receiving it, but that's pretty standard with grant administration.
Okay. Okay. You will. That's it for you right now, Mr. Prisbila. Okay. This section right here concerns me, and I think it may concern most. For the grant coordinator, I see a substantial amount of money is paid directly to the grant coordinator. By my accounting, but Mr. Prisbila is going to deliver a complete and accurate report. There's somewhere around $135,000 of checks that were directly written to Erica McCormick. To me, on the face, certainly appears to be an unorthodox procedure as it relates to disbursements. So reimbursements. I see an amount of $317 to Mrs. McCormick. 201, 225 is all in 2016. Another one, reimbursements, 5,461. I'm not going to go all the way through them, but there's a fair amount of them. Reimbursement 469, 469. Another 469. 294. 321, 477, 1,103, and there's quite a few of them. So I asked Karen Beatty, because Ted's never around, to explain this.
Would you like
give
me
me
to
a
answer?
breakdown of one that's on the front here, 5461, and she did provide it. And it was a whole host of expenditures for different things for the grant.
Are we going to see copies of the breakdown by your accountant?
You can have anything I have. This is all public record.
I'm sorry?
You can have any of this. It's public record.
So you're throwing out inferences.
Just let me finish this before you hop on it, okay?
Tell us exactly what the question is, Mr.
I'm going to get
President.
to it.
Because all you're doing is throwing numbers out, and you're trying to infer, that, again, that there's something nefarious here. So give us a question, and we'll provide an answer.
It's going to come, sir. We'll get there. We'll get it. These large checks that were written to you, directly to you, Mrs. McCormick, in what account do you submit them in? Is it a personal account? How do you pay all of these bills? For example, books for substance abuse, for example, or a video for DWI program, or whatever it is that you do. When those lump sum checks are given to you, are they commingled with personal accounts? I mean, how does this work?
I'm not sure what you mean by personal account. What do you mean by commingled with personal account?
Yeah, so when you receive a check for $5,400 and change for reimbursements, how does that work? What do you do with that check?
So I use my personal credit card to purchase things for the grant because I do not have a town credit card.
Okay.
So I am heavily exposed, and I use my personal credit card, and then therefore, before I use my personal credit card, because you can see the amounts that go on it, I make darn sure through BHDDH that these are approved. So you can see why I would want to do that. So when I get the check, I pay my credit card.
So, Mr. Prisbyla, would you consider that an appropriate accounting procedure?
I know it is at the state, and it's routine, and it's been approved, and many towns do it.
Mr. Prisbyla?
It's my experience that this is not uncommon.
Is it appropriate?
It's an opinion. I said it's common, and as long as
So
appropriate.
you're comfortable with it?
I would prefer to not have a personal individual exposed like this because of the discretion of the council to deny a reimbursement, but I feel let me finish. Are you going to let me finish?
Yes, sir.
I have been assured that Buda approves these expenditures prior to them being made, because if it were on my account, I'd make damn certain that they were approved.
Mm-hmm.
So I have no problem with this. If, in retrospect, if we would sit down and redo this, probably we would establish some other procedure, but I don't have a problem. I feel very confident with the information that Buda has been getting and the fact that Buda has been paying every invoice that's been submitted.
Okay, so you're comfortable with it, but
I'm
you're
going to
not
have to
sure?
say it, Mr. Mahoney.
You're not sure?
What did I say?
You said you would rather not do it.
No, I didn't say that.
So you want to continue with this practice?
I don't have a problem with it. I said, as Wyatt has said, we perhaps should sit down and revisit this to see if we can improve it. But I don't have any issues with what's been done in the past. What I do have an issue is the way this is going and the possibility that this grant that we were sitting on, the $70,000, might be in jeopardy because of
So
the
I see
questions.
tens of thousands of dollars that have went out to the grant coordinator that are being paid through her personal account.
She is being reimbursed for legitimate expenditures that have been reimbursed the town of Scituate by the federal government. And let me tell you, I take that very seriously, because when that single audit report gets done, if it's not done properly, I'm the one that has to answer the questions.
Do you have W-9s for every one of those vendors?
1099, she's telling me yes.
No.
W-9s,
Yeah,
excuse me.
W-9s for every one of them?
Yeah.
Every single one of them?
Well, I will say yes.
Please provide those.
The town has them.
Okay. We don't have them. We don't have them. So they should be, if you're paying for them as the grant coordinator, not the town of Scituate, you're paying for them now through your personal credit card.
I'm paying
Did you
for-
obtain a W-9 for each vendor and a 1099 for each person providing a service, whether it's a consultation or a presentation?
Are we now no longer talking about my reimbursement? Are we talking about something else now?
I'm talking about all of the monies that were given to you that you paid through your personal card or any other way.
So if someone has a W-9, I don't receive their reimbursement.
Okay. Well, they should-
So, for example, if I hire a Channel 10, hired Channel 10 to do commercials, then the check goes to Channel 10.
Oh, so it's a check or a credit card?
Oh, Channel 10 does not charge by credit card. Channel 10 will have a
So this goes through your personal account?
no.
What check
no.
does it get paid by?
I thought we were done with my reimbursement conversation. I thought we were on to something else.
So when Ted writes the check for $5,400 in this example,
Wait a minute, are we talking about my reimbursement now?
I want to know when you receive a large check, or any check,
Oh, so we're back to my reimbursement.
well, listen, I'm not going to let you do the dance.
No, I want to
I want to know when those large checks are given to you to pay people, vendors or suppliers, I want to know how, you're not going to give one large check to one person and he's going to pay everybody. Where does that check go? Does it go into
No large checks are paid to me to reimburse other people.
So how do you break up a $5,400 check? You cash it in cash?
No large checks are paid to me to reimburse other people.
So when you break it up, it has to be deposited somewhere to make those small payments. I've seen a series of them. 600, 500, 800, 100.
Show me the $5,400 you're talking about. Can I see what you're talking about?
I'm asking you a question. All right? I want to know when you receive a large check to pay a series of vendors or suppliers, how do you pay those people?
So has already been given, Mr. President, and when Mrs. McCormick orders supplies, for instance, the intoximeters, she pays the bill from her personal credit card, then reimburses her. So that money is being reimbursed to Mrs. McCormick.
That's the point I'm trying to get at. So in your personal account,
You're trying. I think you're trying to make some inference, and I think you use the word commingling. There's no commingling of funds here.
I want to know where those checks go, what account. That's what I want to know.
You want her
sir.
personal account information?
I want to know if it goes in a personal account.
Get a subpoena.
Does it or doesn't it? Do those monies go in a personal account? Those are taxpayer monies.
Specify those monies.
No, they're federal taxpayer monies. They're not monies that appeared on a thin air.
What do you mean, those monies? Explain. I don't think I understand your question.
I'll ask it again. When you receive large checks or any checks to reimburse the program, where do those large checks, where are they deposited?
So large checks, small checks,
Any check for reimbursement. Where's it
And I purchase, let's say, curriculum books, right? I purchase books for curriculum for the high school and middle school. I go online, I order the books get shipped to the school, and I put it on my credit card, right? So now it's on my credit card, which is a joint credit card with my husband. We both have the same number, joint credit card.
You and your husband?
We have a joint credit card.
Okay.
Same card, same number, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which has also been approved by the state, and they're fine with it. It's common practice.
It's approved by the state Buddha?
And then when I get the bill, I submit a purchase order to the town after having it approved by BHDDH, obviously, because I have a lot of money out on my credit card. When the town writes me a check, I pay my credit card.
Okay, so I want to talk about this approved account by the state for you and your husband.
It's not an approved account. I
So
do
where does
not
the checks
have
go
an
to pay the
approved
credit cards
account.
bills?
I don't, am I?
I want to know where the checks go to pay the credit card bill. Where do what accounts, you can't take a check and stick it to a credit card. What account does it go into to pay the balance or the monies owed on the credit card?
Again, I'll be as clear and as concise as Mrs. McCormick has been. She submits an invoice to the town based on the amount she spent using her personal credit card. That money is reimbursed to Mrs. McCormick. She puts it in whatever account she chooses to put it in.
I want to know what account it is.
You're not getting that
Is it
information.
a joint account between her and her husband?
You're not getting that information. I told you, if you want bank account information, go to the
I want to know if it's a personal account or an account set up to do business for SPP. That's what I want to know.
I don't know how many different ways it can be explained.
No problem.
You're not getting any personal bank account numbers, information, or anything else. She gets reimbursed. She spends her money, she takes her credit card, pays the bill
I get that.
for whatever these kids are benefiting from, and then with HD approval,
Right?
that bill gets approved.
Where does it...
That invoice goes...
She mentioned a joint account for her and her husband. I want to know if it goes in there.
Single? Does it matter?
Yeah, it would, because you have no involvement in this.
Come on. I'm
Come
being
on.
facetious. I'm being... You know what? This is a dog and pony show. This is a dog and pony show. You might have 50 or 60 more questions. Why do you make it 120? You're going to get the same answer time again.
Okay, so I think maybe a different accounting procedure is needed. So there's transparency and clarity, and there's W-9s, and there's 1099s, and everything else that's required for, out of our finance department for expenditures anywhere else.
Mr. President, when you go to Home Depot on Saturday and you purchase something for $400, are you issuing them a W-9?
No, sir, no, but
So
that's
when you buy
a
a
private
product-
sector. This is a municipal road with tax dollars.
But
That's a poor analogy.
When you buy a product, it's
Yeah.
different, okay? So, you know, you're going far afield, with all due respect.
Do you want the message to believe that we're going above and beyond? Go ahead, Ted.
I know you are.
All right, go ahead, Ted.
Once the check is made out to Mrs. McCormick, our responsibility is over. We pay her, we reimburse her. We satisfy the Buddha requirements, they pay the invoice. If she has any issues with the accounting of that information, she has to answer to the IRS, not you. And I am pretty damn certain that she is appropriately accounting for this information coming through, because she's getting a 1099 from the town of Scituate.
Okay, so when this is all done, the procedures on how these monies are going to be dispersed, you're going to be instructed on how they're going to be changed, because we think it's inappropriate. That'll be like me ask you a question. I want to use this as an analogy.
No,
I'm going to ask you, I listen to you. Go ahead.
Right. If the council decides to implement different procedures, Wyatt has clearly indicated it's the council's prerogative to do so. So I'm not going to contest it. We will follow through, and Karen will implement those procedures.
Right.
It's not an adversarial relationship as far as that's concerned. I know, based on my conversations with Wyatt and his interpretation of the contract, that you have the ability to put these procedures in place and to manage this contract.
Yeah.
And I will continue to make certain that the appropriate vouchers are prepared for payment.
Something you should have brought to us a long time ago. Okay. So on its face, I personally believe, and so do many others, that this whole program was handled inappropriately from the very beginning in 14, right up into the current day, on how the monies are handled and how you selectively choose out of your office, Ms. Barla, what documents are required for payment, which certainly are different with others. So after thinking about this an awful lot and studying this whole thing here, I'm going to ask this council to accept language, a motion that the town seek to engage a consultant with requisite qualifications to conduct a thorough program review with the town policies, procedures, and management of the Scituate Prevention Partner Program grant, and that the town council president and vice president are authorized to initiate an RFP process with any future award to be made by the town council to include the Office of the Finance Department and the Office of the Tax Department, as that individual is wrapped up into two positions. So with all that said, I'm going to read that into the record one more time, then I'm going to hand this to Madam Clerk. A motion that the town seek to engage a consultant with requisite qualification to conduct a thorough program review of the town's policies, procedures, and management of the SPP grant, and that the town council president and vice president are authorized to initiate the RFP process with any future award to be made by the town council to include the office of the finance director and the tax office. May a motion to accept that.
Second.
Madam Clerk, a roll call vote, please.
Councilman Amaral.
Yes.
Councilman Izzy.
Yes.
Councilman Collins.
Yay.
Councilman D'Agostino.
Yay.
Councilwoman Frederickson.
Yay.
Council Vice President Payette.
Yes.
And Council President Mahoney.
Yes, ma'am. Motion passes. Thank you for your time.
Am I allowed to address a few more issues that I was accused of at the last town council meeting that I would like to clear the air on? The subject of billable hours at conferences was discussed. I take the safety of our youth very seriously. When I'm taking other people's children anywhere, let alone out of the state, through airports, into cities, I'm safe and secure, and they're getting a life-changing experience. A youth conference is different than a professional conference. It often goes well into the evening. The conference that was referenced at the last town council meeting starts at 7 in the morning and ends anywhere as late as 11:30 at night. And that does not include travel to and from the venues. There are hundreds and hundreds of youth at these conferences. I'm in Tampa, Florida, make sure these kids even get back to their hotels safely. I just wanted to make sure that you understood that at that specific conference that was referenced was a youth conference. I went on another youth conference one other time, and I'm sure you would see the same type of hours. And I was in Washington, D.C. for that. If you look at the billable hours for a professional conference, you will see a different billable hours. I want to make sure that's clear, because it sounded as if I was being accused of billing every waking hour when I was in fact with youth. I just want to, do you have any questions about that?
So, Erica, my question, since you brought this up,
Yep.
I don't even know how many hours you put in for, but so when you were at these youth conferences, you put in for pay for 18 hours a day?
That's correct.
I just find it strange. I participated in many youth conferences that I was responsible for 20 kids, and I didn't put in for 18 hours of pay each day, so it just kind of baffles me.
Well, I want to...
Arizona with 20 police explorers, and I didn't get 18 hours a day for the whole week that I was there.
And I appreciate that, Scott, because for 10 years before doing this, I was a volunteer, and I volunteered 10 years before taking on this grant as well. But there's a component to this grant that is really important. So if you think about it, the federal government gives Rhode Island this money to change behavior, to change substance abuse behavior. So Scituate got this certain amount of money to change behavior that has to be documented, evaluated, and proved. That I have to prove, the coalition has to prove that we've changed behavior. So if the feds give Scituate this certain amount of money, and we change behavior as is measured, they need to know the cost of that. They need to know the cost of what it is to change that behavior. It actually does a disservice. It muddles the numbers. If I were to take this position and do it on a complete volunteer basis, which I had done 10 years prior to not managing a grant of this magnitude, but certainly on a volunteer basis for 10 years. If the coalition did this on a pure volunteer basis, it would mess with the results. Therefore, the feds would not know exactly how much money is needed in future grants to change behavior.
You just got to look at the perception, though. You're 18 hours a day. That's 8 a.m. to 2 a.m.
I don't think it was 18 hours. That might be an exaggeration, but I'd have to go back and look.
That's what I thought. It was 18 hours. I'm not sure because I haven't done my research. I'm just telling you what the perception is. That's just the perception.
If I may, Councilman, I think that the number 18 was used at the last council meeting, and I believe, I do have the transcript, that it went from 14, 15, 16, 18. If you look at, and I can provide you a copy, if you look at the agenda for that particular conference, the agenda began at 7 a.m. in the morning. SAD Board of Directors meeting, 7 to 2. 12 to 4, conference registration. 3, advisory. And it goes on. And the agenda with the children ended at 11:30 p.m. each night. So 14, 15 hours, yes. I don't think anyone, wherever the 18 came from, it came from, but it's not accurate. But the agenda is here. You probably have a copy. And those are the hours that she worked. Now, if I may, just interject something else. There was some question earlier from the town council president about the administrative costs, the 10%. I just want to ask, while I'm standing here, whether or not there's an understanding or a misunderstanding as administrative costs versus the pay for the independent contractors, because they're two separate things, and I don't want to let that go, and I don't want to let that hang in the air as if these, the grant coordinator and the coordinator are somehow embezzling money by their salaries or their pay being in excess of the 10%, because that's just not accurate.
I don't think there's, I think it was cleared up.
Okay, I
But we
appreciate
just wanted to, well, I believe, I don't want to throw words in his mouth, but I think he wants to see the line items from Ted Presbyter, where the line items state the, the salary.
I'm sorry. I understood that was requested, and I'm sure that will be provided. Thank you.
I brought that up, Mr. President, and it was 18 hours. 2 days she charged 18 hours in that conference, and 2 days she charged 16 hours. On the Sunday that she charged 18 hours, the tickets for the plane flight back to Warwick came in after midnight, and another 4 hours was charged on the Monday. So
Bottom line is Mr. Presbyter is going to get right to work, and we're going to have a detailed report in a respectable time frame.
I just like to clear up one other thing about the certification. If you go on Rhode-IslandCertBoard.com, and if you have your cell phone, you can put in the coordinator's name, and you'll see the certification that she had. She didn't have certification for what was required, but what she had has expired. I have it right here. It's expired. I called the Rhode Island Cert Board, and there's no certification. They have no record of any certification as we speak here today.
All right, so with that said, this has reached its conclusion, a motion has been made, we're going to move on to the next topic. That's how it's going to go. Yeah, we're done. So the next item on the agenda is going to be discussion and/or action. We are done. We are done, sir.
So
It's going to be discussion and/or potential action concerning prior town council approval to Thomas Angel for a private family cemetery at the property situated on Angel Lane and delineated as Lot 13, Texas Assessors Plat 17.
So he gets the final word?
There's going to be some order here, because we're not going to hear it.
You heard him.
We're going to move on. That's what we're going to do. We understand we have the same upset people every month. Go to the voting booth. Thank you, sir. All right. Thank you so much. We very much appreciate your time. So this is the Tommy Angel issue.